Hi, everybody. I'm just waiting for my special guest who's going to be here in just a moment.
Surprise!
Hello, Sean.
Hello, Lindy of Magpie Reads. I'm Sean, the Book Maniac. Welcome back to our channels.
Yeah.
I came to Edmonton.
Here's Sean here in Edmonton in my garden.
Yes, that's going back to first principles, the Garden of Eden here. And feel like a virgin all over again.
And we've got Joni too. Let's see. Hello there. There she is.
Joni's taken quite a shine to me.
She has.
Yeah.
And so has the cat.
So have I. I've taken quite a shine to Lindy. And I'm here to debut a new blouse. It came in the mail just a few days ago. And what do you think, Lindy?
It's spotty and stripy.
It's spotty and stripy. Is that a good
Dotty?
thing or bad? Dotty, like me. Yeah, I quite like it.
Yes, it's very nice. Striking graphic design.
Great. I just, all you got to do is pause and you get another compliment. And you went and changed your blouse when you saw how flashy mine was.
Yeah, I had my boring old hoodie on, so I thought I'd get a little spiffed up.
Yes,
Gotta
aren't we a pair? This is going to be a joint Friday Reads, although we never did smoke that joint. And in fact, I have very little to contribute. I'm just going to be harassing Lindy as she tells you about her reading stuff, because I haven't finished anything since my mammoth vlog the other day. So, Lindy, take it away.
Well, in honor of you and your visit, I have a bail to talk about. I DNF'd Painting Time by Maylis de Kerangal. It's a French author. And it's not because I don't like her writing. I was quite enjoying it, but by page 25, I decided it's not for me. And partly because, let me show you, it's the style with hardly any paragraph indentations.
I don't like that.
Translator is...
On the title there, on the cover.
Oh, Jessica Moore.
Jessica Moore.
Yes. And it's very descriptive in the passages. It's about a woman and two friends that she knew from a painting course that she took in Brussels on decorative painting, hence the painting time. But the storyline seems to be going towards romance, and
Not your thing.
not my thing. No.
And I just read my first anything by her, Eastbound, which I really liked, but others of her books that I've heard about, they didn't interest me.
Well, it was because of you talking about Eastbound that I looked to see what was available at my library. And that was one that was easy for me to pick up, Painting Time, not for me. But I also picked up this picture book, Off the Beaten Track, which she
By the
wrote.
same author.
Yes, she wrote it, and the illustrator is Tom Hogamat. So they're both French. And this was translated by Helen Mixter. And the picture book was done, it collaborated in an unusual way, in that the artist made a bunch of illustrations, and then Maylis de Kerangal wrote the story.
Oh.
So she didn't use all of the illustrations, she shuffled some of them around, and you can see that he is famous for his nostalgic nature type illustrations, and I really like this kind of retro design.
Yeah.
And it's an adventure story set in the French Alps. So there's a little bit more of it. So I would say it's an all ages picture book. There is quite a bit of text, so it's not suitable for little kids to read on their own.
Is that why you didn't read it to me for a bedtime story last night?
I was tempted though. I think you might like it.
One more night.
That's right. I was quite impressed with
Is
the
there
picture
any
book.
sex in it?
No. There's death and danger, and
No taxes and no sex.
No, there's a really close relationship between an orphan and a guy he calls his uncle, but was a friend of the family, who kind of takes him under his wing when he's not at boarding school. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I only have 2 books to talk about, neither of which I finished, but for my first contribution to this Friday Reads, I'd just like to talk about the day that Lindy and I spent yesterday. We had a fabulous bookish day, browsing in a couple bookstores, both of which I had haunted when I lived here. I lived in Edmonton from 88 to 91, and then again from 98 to 2001. And especially Audrey's Books was one of my favorite bookstores of my whole life. And we walked in, and of course you've been going there once a week for 37 years or more, but has it been open that long?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I've lived here since 1979, and it's been in that same location.
And is there? I asked you yesterday when we were in the store. There is an Audrey.
There were 2 Audreys.
Oh, I heard that story before.
Yes. So the 2 men who started the bookstore, their wives were both named Audrey, so that's why it's Audrey's with no possessive apostrophe.
Oh.
I
didn't notice that.
Yeah.
I'm a grammar teacher. I should have noticed that. And I walked in yesterday for the first time in probably at least 20 years, and it was exactly the same. And that's just such a wonderful, nostalgic feeling. It's so much the same that I told Lindy that it was that bookstore that I discovered Carol Shields. And I said, I can even remember which shelf it is, and we went there and it was still there. Like they hadn't reorganized anything. The S's, the SH's were still on the same shelf. That was so incredible. So there's a picture we'll put on the screen of that. And yeah, just a really warm feeling being in there. And I got a bunch of books. I'll show you one in a little bit. And then we went for a nice coffee, and then we went to the famous, it's kind of a chain of used bookstores in Edmonton. Is it only in Edmonton? The Wee Book Inn?
I don't know. I think it's only Edmonton.
There's at least 3 locations, maybe more. And we went to the one downtown and got another stack of books, and that was fabulous. So it was a very bookish day.
Yes. And again, in honor of Sean's visit, you had coffee. I had Saskatoon soda.
Saskatoon soda.
Yes.
And she fed me Saskatoon berry jam for breakfast this morning, which I haven't yet partaken of in Saskatoon where I live. So that's my first spiel.
And now I'd like to tell you about this memoir by Brandi Morin, Our Voice of Fire. It's a memoir of a warrior rising. Morin is a reporter. She starts her memoir close to the present day, and then she goes back to her childhood. So you see how she got to that point. And so in this first part, we hear about her working with reporters from the New York Times, doing a story about Tina Fontaine, who was a murdered Indigenous woman in Canada. And it leads into how Morin is able to follow her passion of writing about Indigenous issues, and in particular, missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls. Her own life story is really tragic. There's a lot of terrible things that happened to her to do with alcohol addiction in the family violence. She herself was in the foster care system for a number of years, had mental health struggles. She was in psychiatric care in hospital also. And yet she's doing really well now. So it's an inspiring story. It actually reminded me a lot of a couple of other memoirs, Helen Knott's In My Own Moccasins and Terese Mailhot's Heartberries. So if you've read either of those and you want something similar, yeah, I do recommend this. But, beware. She talks about difficult things, and even there's a chapter where she warns you about, if there's going to be sexual assault in this chapter, so you can skip if you want. Yeah.
Sounds powerful. And
she herself is, her father was French, and her mother Cree, and Iroquois.
And she is a journalist today. Is she connected to any particular paper or TV station? Or
Freelancing. She's written a lot for Al Jazeera.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
And certainly she's got a strong presence on Twitter. I follow her there.
Yeah. And New York Times. Yeah.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
I'll just show you one of the books I bought. I'll do the rest of them on Patreon, as per usual. But this one literally was in a stack at the cashier. And so I added it at the very last minute to the pile. And it's an essay called On Browsing by Jason Guriel, who is a Toronto writer, including a verse novel. And he writes for various periodicals and journals, The Atlantic and The New Republic and so on, lives in Toronto. And this is a celebration of the dying art of losing an afternoon and gaining new appreciation among the bins and shelves of bricks and mortar shops, which was exactly what we were doing yesterday.
Exactly what we did, and it was wonderful.
Have you heard of this guy or this book?
No.
Yeah.
No, it's all new to me. I look forward to hearing what you think of it.
Well, I think it'll probably be one that I'll need to pass on to you. I'll read the opening paragraph, which is, I don't know if it's divided into chapters. Yes, it is. So the first chapter is called Browser History. There's something to be said for the Blockbuster video store of my youth. It was what we had in the suburbs, and it suited the way my mind worked. I liked encountering movies as physical objects dispersed throughout a large room, arranged down walls where the new releases went, and among shelves where the older stuff tarried. I suspect the image of walking through such a room will one day amuse my children. So there is something to be said about physically browsing. I buy a lot of my books online, but half of them I find by looking in a physical bookstore. So, which physical bookstore owners probably hate that I admitted that. What is that?
Well, you did buy a lot of books in a physical bookstore yesterday.
I still do. I buy a lot of books in any way possible. So I'm looking forward to reading that.
Well, my next book that I'm going to tell you about that I just finished is actually an audiobook, and it ties in to Brandi Morin's because it's called Warrior Girl Unearthed. It's a novel, a YA novel by Angeline Boulley, who is a Ojibwe author from the U.S. This is the second novel that she has set in the same Anishinaabe community, which is really close to the US-Canada border, and it's a fictional community. This one is 10 years later.
Oh, right, you were telling me.
After the first novel, which was called Firekeeper's Daughter. And the issues that she covers in this novel, which is more of a thriller, really, are missing and murdered Indigenous women and the repatriation of cultural artifacts and the skeletal remains of Indigenous people from museums back to their home communities. The underlying issues really interested me, and it's a thriller, so, there's lots of implausible things that happen, but it's still exciting to read, and she's done a great job with her characters. The audio narrator is the same as for the first book, Isabella Starr LeBlanc, who is Dakota, and she speaks the Anishinaabe words, that are, there's quite a bit of it in the text.
Pronounce them,
yeah, or she's learned how, as we all can do with Indigenous languages.
Mm-hmm. You better than me.
It's great. But it's great to have them in your ear.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I recommend that if any of what I said has interested you.
And is it a fairly new one?
Yes, it just came out this year.
Okay. The last thing that I'll talk about, I think, is this is a book that I'm going to be starting. I finished one and bailed on one in my vlog. Haven't finished anything or bailed on anything else since then, but the day is young. I'm going to start, this was on my Pride TBR. This is a gay British novel, 7 Nights at the Flamingo Hotel by Drew Gummerson. It's supposed to be really funny, and it's kind of a funny cover because it looks like it's soiled, but that's part of the cover design. Yeah. And that's all I know. This was recommended to me, I'm pretty sure, by Ronan Hession. And I remember exactly what he said to me when he recommended it. He said, "There's lots of bums in it. You'll like it."
Like homeless bums? Or?
No, the other kind of bums, the homoerotic buns. You're such a lesbian. Published in 2020, Drew Gummerson. I think this is his only book, certainly his first one. And I've heard really good things about it, but I hope I like it because he and I follow each other on Twitter.
And flamingos.
And
yay.
flamingos.
Oh, looks like second person.
Maybe. Yes. So the opening line, I'll skip this part. At 5 o'clock in the morning, you are woken by the sounds of the couple in the next room arguing. And this surprises you because the previous night they had kept you up with their passionate lovemaking.
Okay. This does sound like a Sean book.
It does. The arguing part or the passionate lovemaking part? A little of both.
The passionate part. Okay, well, I've saved my favorite book for last.
For usual.
And it's a Canadian debut novel by Kai Thomas called In the Upper Country. Kai Thomas is Afro-Canadian, and this is a historical novel set during the time of the War of 1812 between the US and Canada, or the US and the British. And it is set in a Black community in Canada where the people have mostly escaped from enslavement in the US. Their relationship with Indigenous people is also central to the plot. Which reminds me that Angeline Boulley YA novel that I told you about, Perry, the central character, she is part Black and part Indigenous. And she experiences racism within certain members of her community because of that. And the issue of racism also comes up within the Indigenous Black community in Kai Thomas's novel as well. That when the novel opens, a slave catcher from the US has been shot. He's come there to catch some escaped people and try to bring them back, and he gets killed. And so that starts the action of the novel. There's a lot of viewpoints that are from other writings that come into the text. You know, it's not just a straightforward narrative. There are journals from different people that are recorded.
So do you mean real nonfiction journals or fictionalized journals?
Fictionalized, fictionalized journals, yeah. Which adds that, you know, kind of different textual layering. And there's storytelling as well. So you get to find out more about these central characters and what happened to them in their past. And I was really impressed. I really liked it.
That's great. It's on my radar, and in fact, I think I did a 22 books, CBC Books tells you to read in the spring or something, and it was on one of those lists, so I talked about it. And one of my top tier patrons has, one of the benefits at that tier is you can choose to do a buddy read with yours truly, and she specifically suggested that book for us to buddy read, so Robin and I will be buddy reading that later this year, sometime this year.
Yeah, oh, wow. Yeah, I think you'll like it.
Looking forward to it.
And Joni is wanting attention.
Joni's whining. It's not Sean the Book Maniac whining off camera. You can see me. I'm not making whining face any more than usual. I'm going to ask you about. I couldn't bring my tripod because it didn't fit my tiny little suitcase, and so we've got a stack of books piled high here for our tripod. And I'm curious about the top one, and I think I can take it off the pile. Oksi by Mary, how would you pronounce her name?
Ahokoivu.
Okay. Have you read this?
Yes.
Okay, what is it? Is it it's graphic, okay.
Yeah, it's beautiful. It's based on Finnish or Sami mythology.
Okay, beautiful.
It's one that I want to reread. The protagonist is born to a mother bear, but she doesn't look at all like a bear.
Oh, so it's
She
kind
looks
of the
more
ugly
like
duckling.
she looks more like a little flame, and she's got quite a fiery kind of personality. It's like one great big long myth, and then pages like this it's like a song that's going on, so you can hear chanting or singing sort of. Well, I could as I was reading it. You know, it was really different from anything else I've ever read.
Well, not saying a lot.
And the translator, let me just find her name, Celia Maria Arampuro.
I'm curious about that one. Are we done here?
I think we're done here.
So
We've got more book talking to do off camera.
we do. There's going to be more videos commemorating my auspicious visit to Edmonton, but stay tuned for those. But this is our joint Friday reads. Where is that joint, by the way?
Bye.